All right, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next super stock live stream, where we bring you those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential, companies going after massive multi-billion-dollar market opportunities that are at a key inflection point and with multiple catalysts in place for that upside potential. Frank, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having us.
So Frank, the reason, the reason I wanted to get you back on our live stream as soon as possible is that the uranium space is heating up. We have just was it the other day? I think it was yesterday. Sprott, I think they closed, which is the big money manager. They closed. I think it was $100 million fund basically to buy uranium. And they upsized it to 200 million, which they're closing.
Yes, Sprott, as you know, has set up a Sprott Uranium Trust to acquire physical uranium. So they acquire physical uranium in the spot market. Currently, the spot market price is about $70. And yes, they raised, I believe it was Friday, they raised $100 million on top of 25 they'd raised earlier. But if you stand back and you take a look at what that will allow Sprott to do, the $100 million at a $70 spot price will allow them to buy about 1.25 million pounds of uranium. You put that against the backdrop of the size of the spot market, which is only about 18 million pounds. The spot market, you have to remember, is quite opaque. Most uranium is contracted under long-term contracts by utilities. But the best estimates are the spot market's about 18 million pounds per year. So if Sprott is physically going to go into the market and acquire up to 1.25 million pounds out of that 18 million annual pounds, that could have a significant upward effect on the price of uranium. Now, it all depends how quickly and how aggressively Sprott is going to deploy that $100 million. But nevertheless, whether they do it in one day or over a year, it is going to soak up a fair bit of the spot market, which in normal circumstances will put some fire under the price of uranium.
Yeah, and just in case anybody doesn't know about Sprott, so Sprott really they're like essentially natural resource specialists. So they understand the long-term upside potential. They know the thesis, and in fact, also they upsize the deal. It's not it's 200 million. They're doing 200 million now. So it's double.
And Sprott is a long-time Canadian investment bank. They've been around for a long time. They're not new kids on the block. They're very well established. They have some experts in the commodity space, and certainly their long-term focus in building this uranium trust over the past number of years is a long-term view that the price of uranium is going to go up.
I think if anybody knows, metals,
if anyone knows mining, if anyone knows uranium, it's Sprott.
Yeah. So those guys are like the experts. So if they're doing this now, again, I think this is one of the things we look for is that inflection point. And I think uranium has had a number of inflection points, and this, I think, is going to be one which people will look back maybe a year from now. It's like, oh, wow, this is because the uranium stocks all moved yesterday, especially the Australian ones. From what I understand, actually, spot uranium was up 10% yesterday. I saw some people, talking about it. Some of the guys on X, on Twitter, whatever, the guys who are the big uranium experts, so they see that as a huge deal. And that brings us to Snow Lake, which is what the uranium space is, when Sprott gets in, people need to pay attention. That's like a major signal for the market. And I think with Snow Lake, you're in a very, very unique position, which is you're building, I think what you called it in one of your press releases, I'll let you explain it, say it in your own words. I love that quote.
It's a full spectrum, if you will. And yes, if you look at the nuclear supply chain, nuclear energy supply chain, if you will, it starts up at the top with uranium mining, We have 2 uranium projects. The principal project is the Pine Ridge project in Wyoming, which we are a 50-50 joint venture partner with Global Uranium and Enrichment out of Australia. We're joint venture partners in that. We also have our Engo Valley uranium project in Namibia. And for those of you who keep asking why Namibia, Namibia is the 3rd largest global producer of uranium in the world. So that's why we're there. We have a historic project there. We're in the process of our 2nd round of drilling right now. We hope to have some preliminary results coming out in the next week on that. Just an update, progress update, but that program's in midstream right now. So on the upward end of the supply chain, we have those 2 principal projects.
These are district scale. These are district scale projects.
These are large projects.
Okay.
The project we have...
Give people, if anybody's new, maybe explain to them what district scale means.
Yeah, district scale is large scale. You take Pine Ridge, for example, in Wyoming. We're in what's called the Powder River Basin in Wyoming, and the Powder River Basin in Wyoming is the epicenter of uranium production in the United States. There's 12 existing ISR, that's in situ recovery operations. I believe there's 5 more in the process of being permitted. So certainly Wyoming is the largest producer of uranium in the United States. And we have a very large land position. We have about 37,000 acres, and we're sandwiched between UEC's project to the north and Cameco's project to the south. So we're ideally positioned in the middle. We have historic drill results, and we hope to have a drill on site. What are we now? Middle of June. Hopefully have a drill on site beginning of July. And we have a very aggressive drill program, and the objective is to prove up a maiden mineral resource estimate by the end of this year. And I think if the program is successful, if the maiden resource comes out as we anticipate, the potential for the project is to be the 2nd largest resource of uranium in Wyoming. So
Wow.
That's when we talk about district scale and the potential size of this. And that would even be larger than Cameco's project in Wyoming. So that's what we mean when we talk about district scale, if you will. Very large scale. And obviously that positively affects economics if the project goes into production. Okay. So we have our drill program planned, very aggressive, hopefully have drill on site July 1.
Okay. And yes, but again, the idea of the full spectrum play. So you got the 2,
sure.
You got 2 massive uranium projects, right? You have, but what's different is I think what's very compelling about Snow Lake, what you're doing. Again, I don't think anybody in the market has figured this out yet, because this is a really very unique business model. Is, unlike a lot of these players like Cameco, whatever, they're just uranium exploration, mining, etc. You're actually doing this, what you call this full spectrum strategy, this full spectrum play, where you go from you have the projects, then you're going into building these small what do they call it? SMR, these small medium nuclear reactors, which is the real value. That's where I think the money is going to be, because all these tech companies, they need, we talked about this many times, they have this massive need for electricity, right? There's this the electron shortage, that they need for the AI data centers, for EVs, for mining crypto, everything else that's coming down the line. We just don't have enough electricity, and they're all turning to these, right? So you have a partnership with a company that's building these SMRs, right?
Right. We're in the process of setting that up. Let me just sort of go back and sort of work our way down the supply chain to the SMRs. So we're at the top of the supply chain with the uranium mining. The next step is uranium enrichment. And our partner on Pine Ridge, GUE on the ASX, they also own a 21% interest in a private Australian company that's developing a next generation uranium enrichment technology. And they have recently attracted an investment from the 2nd largest uranium enrichment group in the world, called Urenco, based out of Europe. And Urenco has invested 5 million Aussie dollars for a 13% interest in this private Australian company, with a view towards commercializing their enrichment technology. So that's the second footprint we have across the spectrum.
So that's a significant validation. If these guys are if they're putting that type of money in, I mean, they must have done their due diligence.
Yes, enrichment, as you know, is one of the most highly regulated and classified industries in the world because it's all based on nuclear. And the due diligence and the security protocols that Urenco had to go through in order to do their due diligence, having come out the other end of that process and making the investment, yes, it's a clear validation that they feel there is the ability to commercialize this. Obviously, they've invested the money, they need to do the work, but clearly it's a good signal that the technology that this Australian company is developing has great potential. Otherwise, it wouldn't have attracted someone like a Urenco. So that's the second footprint across the spectrum that we're developing. The third footprint, which you were mentioning earlier, is we're in the process of setting up a joint venture partnership with a private company called Exodus Resources to look at the deployment of SMR, small modular reactors, in the United States. And that we're in the process of pulling that together now. We hope to have that all finalized within the next 30 to 60 days. And Jack, this is all against the backdrop of what the current U.S. administration is doing.
We're just gonna,
And that's sort of the segue. So I think we're a little unique in having those three footprints across the spectrum down the nuclear energy supply chain. But a lot of that is a U.S. footprint as well with Pine Ridge. Ultimately, the enrichment technology right now, it's Australia, Europe, but the SMRs clearly have a U.S. footprint as well. Turning to the U.S. administration, once they came on board in January, one of the first executive orders that came out was an energy emergency, if you will. So the administration understands the demand for electricity. They want to be world leaders in AI. They want to be world leaders in crypto. EVs, not so much. But all of these applications require electricity. And the nuclear renaissance, as people are talking about, people are understanding that nuclear is actually clean energy. It's emissions free. It's actually the most cost effective. But more importantly, when you start talking about AI, they need 24/7 reliable power that's scalable. Just because the demands for AI, the data centers, the hyperscale data centers, are requiring more and more electricity. Renewables can't meet it. Fossil fuels can't meet it, but nuclear can meet it. That's why you're seeing all the big tech companies from Google, Amazon, Meta turning and focusing on nuclear just to anticipate the demands for the electricity coming down. So we think, given the footprints we're establishing across the full spectrum in the US against the backdrop of the current administration policies, we feel we're ideally positioned to take advantage of ultimately what is going to be a renaissance in the nuclear energy space.
Yeah, I mean, and beyond that, I think a massive mega trend for the uranium stocks. Now, again, what also separates, and I think you're incredibly positioned because not only do you have this, again, full spectrum play, but you're also NASDAQ listed, right? Which most of these other companies, they're Canadian or Australian, which is like, the NASDAQ, being on NASDAQ means ultimately when the stock starts moving, you can attract, massive amount of, basically you get a massive demand for the stock because NASDAQ is where it's at. The Canadian markets are kind of drying up, and we've seen LITM have massive moves on that. Millions of 50 million share days.
Yeah. I think if you stand back and look at what I like to call the ingredients that we're putting together, we are listed in NASDAQ. The US capital markets are the largest in the world. We're establishing 2 of our 3 footprints across the full spectrum of the nuclear energy are based in the US. Against the backdrop of the administration, you factor in Sprott raising $100 million to go into the spot market. There's a number of ingredients that
are lining up.
They're all going to coalesce at some point, and I think the entire uranium nuclear sector is going to rise. And we hopefully will be and our shareholders will be one of the beneficiaries of that rise.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, look, I think the stars are all like really aligning right now. I mean, it's all really coming. Everything is just coming together. I mean, you got Trump, who loves uranium, nuclear energy. He's been bullish on nuclear from the beginning. And then you have one of the guys in his administration is David Sachs, I think, who big tech guy, a VC, who helped him really get elected. He's the guy that pushed him kind of over the edge with the Silicon Valley crap. He's one of the guys talking about the electron shortages, what they're calling it, and the massive need for these SMRs and everything else. So again, everything is just lining up, and now with Sprott, that's kind of that's the tip. That might be the tipping point, or either we're past the tipping point, but everything is just really starting to move. And the stock, I'm looking at LITM. I think the stock is just ready for a catalyst to explode. I mean, the charts look great, and I think maybe it could be the drill results. That you have. Again, you have multiple catalysts for LITM, which is why we want to have you on a regular basis when these results come in. You got the district scale uranium project in Wyoming, but then you have the one in Namibia, which is the one which is and people are asking about that. People are asking questions. Angle Valley, this is the one where we're supposed to have results starting to come in now, like literally.
Yes, as I did indicate, we hope to have some preliminary results coming out of our phase 2 in the next week or so. That's our current plan. So yes, we're on track. We did indicate early June, but it'll most likely be mid-June. So that's on track. As I indicated, we should have a drill on site to start our drill program at Pine Ridge, beginning of July. We hope to pull the joint venture on the SMRs together within the next 30 to 60 days, and we'll have an announcement as to who the technical team is on that, which I think will garner some attention, quite frankly. But another intriguing analysis, Jack, that I saw, which underpins the whole nuclear energy thing, is the current administration obviously is focused on nuclear. It is focused on fossil fuels, not so much on renewables. And one of the interesting aspects of the administration not focusing on renewables is that will take a chunk of electricity generation out of the system, which is going to exacerbate the demand for electricity, which is going to push more people back to nuclear because it's clean energy, because it's the most cost effective.
I think, Frank, there's
and reliable. So that's an intriguing analysis that popped up the past couple of days, which again is another tailwind for the whole nuclear energy space.
No, a lot of tailwind. I mean, I think there's such a short of electricity. I think the lights went out where you are right now because it's gotten darker.
I'm in a different location in my office, so I have no power. Well, I'm running on battery for my computer here, but yes, my power is.
This points to the need. I mean, this is the example. We're getting a live example of the need for this electricity. Now, so I think there's two things which also, again, you can't overemphasize this. Not only are you NASDAQ listed, the company also has, 10 million in cash, right?
We're close to 16 million US in cash right now.
16 million. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, 16 million in cash. Okay,
we're well funded.
16 million in cash, and the market cap is, let's call it 25, 30 million, or up 28 million, whatever it is. So basically, investors are getting this thing for almost free, right? I mean, it's almost free. 16 million in cash, NASDAQ listing, multiple shots on goal. You got, again, multiple catalysts in place. Everything is really lining up. Now, I think this is probably one of the best kind of ground floor opportunities for somebody who wants that nuclear play. And then again, everything else you got with Sprott, you got Trump, all the trends, all the tailwinds.
All the tailwinds are there. Something needs to light the spark to move.
Right. It's like the atomic. It's like the nuclear. What is it? It needs that what is it? That thing to start the chain reaction going. But it needs that what do they call it? The cattle, whatever it is. It
needs a spark. It needs a spark. Look, I think as I say, Sprott is a very well respected, very serious. They're experts at what they do. And $100 million going into the spot uranium market is something that, as you say, all the commentators have woken up and taken a look at that. That may be the one tailwind that starts to energize the whole sector, no pun intended. But something like a Sprott investment in the spot market will start to move the spot price up, and then that will cascade into other aspects of the of the full spectrum.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, no, this is no. I mean, again, everything is lined up. I think that people need to have this stock, like literally, if there's any stock that somebody needs to have on their watch list right now, it's LITM over the next, weeks, next I would say 8 to 12 weeks, as we have these catalysts, and long term, as the nuclear story kind of mushrooms, so to speak. Again, the uranium stocks have really been great. We're in the, I would say, early stage of this mega trend. Not maybe the second inning. So we're maybe like we're like maybe the second or third inning of the mega trend. The big that move where things go absolutely parabolic, which we saw. What was, I'm trying to think, what was the last big uranium bull market that was
a year and a half ago, within the past 2 years.
The big one where stocks went up 50x. That was 2010, I think, 8, 5.
Oh, well, that would be, that would have been, a decade and a half ago, before Fukushima happened, correct.
Yeah, but things were going bananas, right? And
another interesting data point for you, and this sort of goes back to the new administration and their focus on nuclear. And one of the issues that investors always look at for mining projects is permitting. And under the new administration, the Department of the Interior has come out with new guidelines, basically saying, look, we don't want 2-year reviews. We want reviews done in 28 days.
Yeah.
And in fact, a couple of weeks ago, a permit was granted for a uranium mine in Utah in 28 days.
Wow.
So we actually have a real world concrete example of where the bureaucracy under the current administration is actually starting to implement the policies of the administration, which you don't often see. Oftentimes you have policies at the senior level of government, and it takes a very long time to filter down through the bureaucracy. But here we have a case in point within the first 150 days of this administration, where the bureaucracy, hate to say it, actually got the memo and is acting on the memo. So we have a real world example of a uranium mine in the US being permitted within 28 days.
Is this the first? Is this the first U.S. uranium mine in a long time to be permitted? It's got to be like, I don't know.
I believe so. There's a number of operations in Wyoming that were shut down after Fukushima that are in the process of restarting. But as far as greenfield's new uranium mines, I do believe this might be the first one to be permitted in a long time. As opposed to
it's a big deal. I mean, it's because, again, ultimately, when it comes to these mining stories, it's not so much finding the resource. It's the bureaucracy, getting the permits and getting through all that, which is why most of these projects out there, like they never come to fruition now. But you have Trump and you have the Silicon Valley. Everybody's pushing for it now. So all of a sudden we have, like, again, this is an absolute game changer for uranium.
I think from Snow Lake's perspective, having a footprint in the U.S., having a potentially large project in Wyoming, which, as I say, is the epicenter of uranium production, and I can't really overemphasize the impact that the current administration policies are having. Unlike prior administrations, this one actually is being implemented by the bureaucracy. So I do think those tailwinds will gather speed, and everyone participating up and down the nuclear supply chain will ultimately be the beneficiary. And ultimately, there's going to be that one catalyst that sort of sets everything alight. And quite frankly, it may very well be Sprott.
No, definitely. Okay. Bottom line, Frank. So the next piece of news we should be expecting is drill results, right? That's the next.
We should have some first look at the second round of drilling at Ango Valley. We hope to have that within the next week or so. We'll have confirmation that we have permits and drills on site at Pine Ridge within the next couple of weeks. And then basically we're doing the hard yards of drilling for both of those projects, Pine Ridge and Ango Valley. The objective and the milestone, the catalyst, if you will, is we hope to have an initial resource estimate on both of those projects by the end of this year.
Okay.
So that's what
now, Okay, so there could be a resource estimate by the end of this year. Now, your Australian partners, from what I understand, is they think there's a potential resource of 50 million pounds uranium.
Yes, they have what's called a JORC, which is the Australian Mining Code. They have a JORC exploration target of 50 million pounds. That's correct. That would make Pine Ridge the second largest uranium resource in Wyoming, larger than Cameco.
So that's worth potentially.
That's significant. And that goes back to what we were discussing earlier about what we call a district scale project. It would be a large project, potentially the second largest project in Wyoming. And as you know, there's many, many, many uranium projects in Wyoming.
So this could be worth, based on the current prices, I mean, based on where things are going, let's call it $5 billion potential. That's the resource, the value of the resource in ground.
Yeah.
So and the stock, the valuation of the stock right now is, what are we at, $28 million with 16 million in cash in the bank. So really, you're basically paying $10 million for this, and that's just Wyoming. We're not even talking about Namibia, which is almost, I think, similar, right? Or similar JORC estimate of $50 million.
No, there's no estimate on that one. No, there's some historical estimates on that.
Okay.
But yeah, when you look at the market cap versus the cash, I mean, there's a bit of a gap, but the way I basically put it is we're not trading much higher than our cash value, which really discounts all of our assets. It discounts Pine Ridge, discounts Engo Valley, discounts the investment through our partner in the enrichment technology, and obviously discounts our potential joint venture on SMRs as well.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, again, one of the kind of the most compelling stocks out there right now in the market is definitely LITM. Okay, so news flow is expected in the next week, 2 weeks. We're gonna have news, a lot of stuff happening. Frank, great to have you on. Thank you everybody for joining us again, and hopefully we'll have you back on as soon as you have some big news.
Perfect.